So thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. There is this quote from 17th century that goes, all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit alone quietly in a room with our own thoughts. Now, as human beings, it is quite natural for us to have very strong thoughts and emotions. Now, we could either we could either reject it, we could ignore it, or we can choose to learn from our thoughts and emotions to understand ourselves and who we are as persons. I myself have been dealing with a lot of strong emotions over the last 5-8 years. I used to always reject them, I used to fight with them, I used to even feel guilty for some of them. Why am I having these thoughts? And at times, some of these thoughts and feelings were so strong that I had feelings of physical pain in my body. I had no peace. You see, we have our physical body that we know how to take care of. We take care of it through diet, through exercise, through your workouts, whatever you do, and some nutrition. We have our mental body, which we take care of by stuffing it with knowledge, with acquiring some new skills and using that knowledge. That's how we take care of our mental body. Then we have our spiritual body, which is something that is we have once you take out the physical body and the mental body. So we are left with spiritual body. It is almost defined by negation rather than addition. Now there is something there. It is our raw conscious awareness, and anything and everything that is happening in our life, we are experiencing that in our spiritual body. So let's talk about the spiritual body. I feel that we have lost touch with our spiritual body because of all these uninspected and unresolved issues that we have piled on top of it in our mind. So much unresolved and uninspected issues that we have covered our spiritual body and we have lost touch with it. And instead of dealing with these unresolved and uninspected issues, we are finding ways and means to always entertain ourselves, keep ourselves distracted so that we never get to focus on them. And we have gotten so good with our entertainment and distractions with all the social media that we have completely forgotten all of our problems. The only problems we tend to deal with are the ones that we have to deal with in our everyday life just to get through the day. Or we deal with the ones that is coming through the week, essentially. But in the end, we tend to still only deal with these day-to-day problems, but we have this whole list of unresolved issues in our mind which is covering our spiritual body. And even though we solve some problems, two of them pop up because you have not resolved those anything. They keep on popping up. So you take care of some, two of them again come up, waiting for your turn to come up because you're just sitting there, covering up your spiritual body. So we have no peace. Because of this, we get into this vicious cycle of just solving problem day in, day out, essentially. So we have no peace. Even when we think that we don't have any problems, we still have this persistent, non-specific anxiety because of all our unresolved issues, and we don't even know where this anxiety is coming from. So we need to let our spiritual body emerge, and we need to take care of resolving these uninspected, unresolved issues. I would even go as far to say that most of us are spiritually obese. And I'm talking about like 350-pound obese. Most of us are spiritually obese. So how do we take care of this? I can give you things that have worked for me. So that's what I would like to talk about. Things that have worked for me, because I can only talk by experience. So over the last 5 years, I have been sitting with my thoughts in the morning, and I let my thoughts come to me. I don't fight it. I don't pursue them, I don't shut them down either. It's kind of, I'm just hanging out with my thoughts. So that's all I did initially, maybe 2, 3 weeks just hanging out with my thoughts. Slowly and gradually, I started to notice this language and self talk that I did with myself. And our brain is a very amazing thing. Whatever questions you ask of it, it is always going to find answers for you. Okay. So I started noticing that I'm asking questions, things like, why does this always happen to me? Why me? What did I do wrong to deserve this? Me, why me? And guess what? My brain said, you want to know why? I will tell you why. So I was not, even though I was getting the answers, I was not happy with the answers I was getting. So I started to realize that if I want to find better answers, I need to ask better questions. So that is when I started kind of going up another level, where I learned that I need to start taking personal responsibility. So that's what I started to do. I started to take personal responsibility towards anything and everything that happened in my life. I stopped complaining, I stopped blaming others, I stopped blaming situations and circumstances. I kept telling to myself, if it has to be, it's up to me. It is my own personal responsibility for things that are happening to me. Even though somebody is doing it to me, I'm still letting it happen to me. That's how I started to move on to the next phase. So once I started taking personal responsibility, I started asking the right questions. What is it that I can learn from this? I know this bad thing has happened to me. What is it that I can learn from this? What is it that I could have done differently to take care of myself in this situation? What is it that I can do next time so that I don't face with this again? So that way, what is it that I could do to have contributed to this negative feeling that I have towards my people, to my friends, towards family? What is it that I could have done? Or how did I contribute to this negativity? So by taking personal responsibility, things started to get a little better. My brain started giving me very good answers that made a lot of sense to me internally. Once I started experiencing that, then the next thing I started to move towards was figuring out things that I can and cannot control. So for things that I cannot control, for those thoughts and issues that I can't control, I don't really, I tend to just accept it. Okay, and I even express gratitude. Thanks for this thought coming into my mind. I accept it and I just let it go. I don't engage with it. I don't let it do anything. I just let it go. Now, that is not to say these thoughts never came back. They kept on coming back. Things I could not control kept on coming back. But I always did the same thing. I acknowledged it, I accepted it, expressed my gratitude, and I let it go. So slowly and gradually, what happened was these things that I didn't have control over, they started to disappear. Or they sat so far in the background, it never came back to my mind, essentially. So then I started to get to work on things that I had control over. So once I started to do that, focusing on things that I had control over, I started to find this internal peace and this sense of empowerment that for the first time in my life, I felt like there are things that I can do to make my life better by doing things that brings me joy and taking care of my needs. By focusing on things that I control, this is how I would classify myself as doing spiritual self-care for myself. So by focusing on my spiritual self-care, I started to heal, and I started to get in touch with my spiritual body, and I started to understand this raw state of awareness of my spiritual body. Now, this is the raw state of awareness, and awareness is always peaceful. Kids live in this state of awareness. They are the ones who are always, in this state of awareness. They live so much in awareness and very less thought. Whereas adults, we pretty much live exclusively in thoughts with very glimpses of awareness. So all I can say is 3 years last 3-4 years practicing this spiritual self-care, I have been able to get in touch with my spiritual body, and I have healed a lot. And I feel this sense of awareness of myself that I never had before. Now, it is very difficult for me to explain what getting in touch with the spiritual body and feeling this self awareness feels like. It's like explaining to an unfit person what being fit feels like. I can't explain, you have to experience it for yourself. And I'm trying my best to explain my journey, what I went through to get there, hoping to help you guys. In the end, all that I can say is by following the path of spiritual self care, I have started my journey towards going from being spiritually obese to being spiritually fit. Thank you.